Hello and welcome back to my studio. Today's experiment is going to be looking at using a new tool in order to apply paint to the page for a loose abstract style of landscape painting. This is the result that you see here, and what I'm trying out is a tool called a catalyst wedge. It's a shaped silicone spreading tool that's used by oil painters, acrylic painters, that sort of thing, for pushing paint around and applying it to the page. And I thought I'd give it a go because it's very similar to using the card or the palette knife to apply watercolour paint to the surface that you're using. So I'm going to try it with watercolour paint. As I say, it's more usually used with oil or acrylics, and let's see how this new tool works. So today I'm using a piece of Milford cold press watercolour paper. It's taped to my board with ordinary decorator's masking tape. My board is flat to start with, but I shall pick it up and tip and tilt it to get the paint to flow. Using the wet and wet method, wetting the board randomly, leaving a few dry patches. Then I've squeezed out tube consistency, burnt sienna, Payne's grey, indigo and some sepia onto my catalyst wedge across the edge. I'm dragging the paint across the wet page. You can see that where it's hitting a really wet part of the paper, the paint is beginning to diffuse, but it stays put where the paint has hit the dry paper. It's looking really interesting. I can go in and grab my brushes and then start to manipulate the paint that I've put on the page, maybe add some more, work around what was created by applying the paint with the catalyst wedge. Some might say, why not just apply the paint with brushes? And yes, of course, if you're interested in seeing what happens if you apply very thick paint with brushes, then that's a great way to experiment. But I feel that if you apply the paint with a stiff surface or semi-flexible surface like this silicone wedge, the marks that are created as the paint grazes the surface of the paper and sort of marries and mingles with the water and other shades of paint is actually quite unique if you're using different tools to apply the paint in different ways. And for painting expressive abstract landscapes, this can be a really exciting way to paint. Hopefully you can see now as the paint runs and flows on the page. It's looking really interesting already. I've got some lovely dark transitions of colour and value and texture, and some beautiful light areas as well. And the paint is flowing into the wet washes and giving me some really subtle effects. And I think it's really important to mention here that keeping an eye on composition, even as you paint an abstract landscape, is really important. And I hope you can see that there's a lot of depth and interest in the outcrop of land that's appearing before our eyes as the paint sort of flows and marries and mingles. But there's also lots of space around it for a very airy sky and a really nice airy foreground. So we're sort of seeing or trying to coax a fairly balanced composition out of this, keeping it really simple and really loose so it's suggestive of the landscape rather than trying to overtly paint the landscape in. So I'll keep making a few adjustments, but not too much, because I'm very much inspired by the loose watercolour paintings of the late Edward Wesson, and his philosophy was to disturb the paper as little as possible. And so he was always looking for really smooth, clean transitions of paint and brushstrokes. And even though my style, of course, is nothing like Edward Wesson's, his philosophy, I think, sort of has always underlined my style of painting when I like to paint like this. It's the sort of less is more philosophy and trying to keep things looking really clean and sort of no overworking here at all. I just want the painting to be really fresh. So it's really important for me not to fiddle with this painting too much. There's a pool of water sort of right in the middle that I can see that might dry back, giving me some uneven and strange marks, like cauliflower marks. So I'm really carefully trying to dab out a little bit of that surplus water, which will get sort of soaked up by a piece of paper tissue. Just really carefully dabbing it out, but without trying to sort of affect the paint application too much, and I think I've just about gotten away with that. Now I'm going to walk away from it and not touch it and leave it to dry completely. I've been away and had a cup of coffee, and here's the dry painting, and I've lifted the board back up to about 20 to 30 degrees, which is my comfortable angle for painting on. And I think it's dried back beautifully. The sky and the foreground are really fresh, really clean washes, beautiful graduated marks. And of course the land masses, be they whatever you see, whatever's suggested here by this sort of abstract landscape, whether it's woods or fields or sand dunes, have dried in a very interesting way. And I think there's a lot of potential here with this new tool, this Catalyst Wedge. I've decided to finish the experiment off by just trying a little flight of birds, sort of bursting out over that land mass. So you can see here I've lightly penciled a few birds in, and now I'll quickly speed up the process of painting over the birds with a little bit of sepia and a touch of Payne's grey. And that's it. That's this painting finished. Just a simple little loose flock of birds over this abstract landscape, which just sort of brings the scene together. It sets the scene into context. But I'm really pleased with this. I love painting these loose abstracts from time to time. It's something I'd like to focus on a little bit more, and probably will be sharing more of these here for you on YouTube. So I hope you enjoy watching this kind of experiment, and I hope you like the outcome. I'm really pleased with these lovely soft greyish blues that we get from the Payne's grey. I like to use Cotman Payne's grey here because it sort of splits out and has a really lovely blue hue when you use it with lots of water. But of course you can get it almost as black as a true black when you use it thick with less water. So many thanks for watching. Please leave us a like and consider subscribing to our channel if you'd like to. It costs nothing to do, but it really helps us with our reach. And thank you so much to everybody that supports us on Patreon. We really do appreciate you. I'll see you again soon. Take care, and happy experimentation and happy painting. Bye.